Taken. He wanted a cure. He found the Creator. This book is dedicated to the beloved. Chapter 1. The Plague. An ocean of stars brushed against the vessel in waves, sending music tumbling into the cabin, carefree and jubilant. Enoch pressed his face against the panel, eager to start the journey. He settled into the cushioned seat, glad the ruby fabric didn't vanish beneath his touch, and gripped the golden rails until his knuckles appeared white. The dark expanse teemed with life. It swirled together in great systems, organizing, expanding, contracting, exploding. Surprised, the voice echoed through the chamber. Enoch nodded. Regrets? Enoch shook his head and laughed at himself, a grown man, crying. Grateful tears blurred his vision as he strained to take in the view. He couldn't shut his eyes. Not now, not ever. I never knew there was so much. We are delighted to find you. Why me? That day you stepped out of line and demanded an answer, we knew. Enoch frowned. From that moment, you were chosen to be taken. The year of the plague, 639 BC. Enoch scratched the ruddy mound on his flesh, smacked the flittering critter buzzing round, and took a step forward. The throng wove around the hillside until it disappeared into the dwelling atop the mount. How much longer, you think? Enoch rubbed the flesh near the wound, trying to ignore the itching. I bet you did it. The aged woman waved at the swarm with her smoking rod. Enoch nodded and opened his palm. What is it? The squishy thing was intact, but motionless. What does it do? She asked. It flies? Father Adam named it well. Enoch grinned and flicked it away. Here, rub that on it. The aged woman handed him a small green leaf and moved a space ahead. Didn't used to be many of those around. You younglings wouldn't remember. Enoch did as he was told. In moments, his skin returned to normal and the itching subsided. It's wonderful. He dabbed the leaf over his legs and arms. What's it called? She looked over her shoulder and whispered, Alru. Just a tad now and give it back. Ain't much left. She stuffed the leaf deep inside her robe. You ask a lot of questions. The aged woman studied him from head to toe, but Enoch held her gaze steady. You're not much older than my own daughter. Where are your folk? Too sick to stand. Enoch straightened his shoulders and puffed his chest so his blue banner gleamed in the sunlight. They sent me to stand for them, seeing how I just turned 17 and I'm a 7th son. That you are. The woman ran her callous hand over his sash and turned him from side to side. Finally, she seemed satisfied. A proud young scout, too, I see. I'd be glad for your company. Enoch gave her a low bow and offered his arm. At your service, mother. And you got honor, too, she grinned. Enoch was glad to get the woman's approval, but she was the one asking a lot of questions, especially about his fathers. Until he had recited his whole lineage from Jared back to Adam, he would have said so, but she didn't seem the type to be trifled with. Many pardons, mother, but when did the plague come to your? The aged woman kept right on talking. As I was saying, my daughter be a real find, in training to be a Medici woman too. How long you been training for the Nesh Panel? He and the woman exchanged tales of their clans to pass the light. She mostly talked about her daughter named Dina, who was near mating age. The mother had a funny way of getting answers without giving any. But since the line had barely budged from son's birth, Enoch didn't mind. Kinsmen from the four corners were arriving continuously, skipping the rear, bargaining for a spot near the front, pushing him and the woman further behind. Enoch tried to be polite, but this was ridiculous. We'll never get to see Father Adam at this pace, he thought. Make way, boy, a brutish man covered in pelt yelled, jostling Enoch so hard he stumbled into the old woman. The man, his 2 wives and 4 children, bucked right in front of him and the aged mother. "Hey!" Enoch shouted. The woman cupped a hand over his mouth. "Hush now, those be Cain's folk. We don't want no trouble." "Cain's folk? What are they doing here?" Enoch said a little too loudly. The craggy man glared at Enoch. His daughter, a pretty girl with long raven hair, disappeared behind her mother, but not before waving at Enoch and giving him a shy smile. Enoch smiled back, wincing when the aged woman pinched his ear. "Mind your manners. Great Mother Eve sent for their clan, seeing how Father Adam be getting the dark side of the sun." The burly youth next to the pretty girl wore a scout's banner almost identical to Enoch's own, except his was crimson. Enoch nodded and gave him the scout's signal. The boy hesitated, glancing at his father, still busy arguing with his wives. He returned the hand gesture when the craggy man wasn't looking, and added a few more. Enoch sent another hand signal. "Good thing you're new around here, or I'd challenge your papa." Enoch flexed his skinny biceps, moved into the warrior stance, and scowled. The boy laughed so hard, dimples protruded from his chubby cheeks. The two went back and forth, exchanging info with a sleight of hand as the line edged forward. Enoch learned the boy's name was TWO-ENOCH, and the pretty girl was his sister, Naima. Naima didn't know the secret code. No real Nesh Panel will ever show it to a girl. So her brother whispered the translation every so often, which made her giggle. "Aye, the day's sweeter with friends," the aged woman said. Enoch nodded, trying to think of something else clever to signal, anything to make Naima laugh. Enoch thought he'd never seen something so beautiful as Naima's eyes when she smiled. The long wait seemed mere moments. The elder woman tapped his shoulder, looking annoyed. "Time to gather your wits, boy." Enoch startled. They were just steps away from Adam's dwelling. The elders whispered in the old tongue outside the entrance, but not so low Enoch couldn't make out a few words. He winked at TWO-ENOCH and gestured for him to eavesdrop too. A petite girl, almost buried under a halo of sandy curls, sat at the foot of a silver-haired elder. She grabbed the old man's blades from his belt, flicked them against each other, pausing just long enough to gesture back. "Aye, will do." Enoch frowned and signaled the curly girl. "I'm not talking to you. I was talking to him." Enoch pointed at TWO-ENOCH. The curly girl gave TWO-ENOCH the once-over, shrugged, and continued sharpening the blades. "Who taught you Nesh Panel signals?" Enoch asked, using his hands. She put a finger to her lips and pointed to the elder. "Listen." "Did you find the vine?" one elder asked the silver-haired man. "No." The Medici searched the heart of the 7 hills. Nothing. The Alpha trackers were sent to the edge. Perhaps they found favor. The elder stopped speaking when Father Adam coughed, a hacking so loud those close by fell silent. "Keep quiet about the Alro, boy," the aged mother whispered. "I might be needing it for myself." "He's been like this for many suns," the silver-haired man said quietly. The coughing spell returned, louder this time, and with it a whooping ring. Father Adam tried to speak in between fits, but his voice was thin, weak, and his breath so labored it pained Enoch to hear him. Enoch gazed down the hillside. As far as the eye could see, tribesmen stood waiting for their moment, each for his turn to speak with first Father Adam one last time. He was surprised he hadn't noticed it before. Many of them were coughing too. Enoch counted the people in front of the aged woman. 12 more to go. "He needs rest," the silver-haired elder said. "We should stop." A wretched sound, loud and long, came from the dwelling. Adam gasped. The silver-haired elder rushed inside, pulling the curly girl behind him. Enoch stepped around the aged woman and peeked through the entry. Mother Eve was at Father Adam's side, rubbing his chest. She gave the signal to shut the curtains. Without thinking, Enoch grabbed the aged woman's hands and forced his way through, breaking the line and all order as he pushed past the craggy man and every elder. "Wait!" Enoch demanded. "She has Alru." The elders waved them forward. The aged woman resisted Enoch, but when she met Mother Eve's desperate eyes, she bowed and gave her the tiny withered leaf. A gift for me, Father Adam. May the ancient bless thee. Mother Eve kissed the aged woman. Bless ye, daughter. She grabbed a steaming pot of water from the fire and snapped her fingers at the curly girl. Quick, boil it. The elders patted Enoch on the head and made as if they would show him out. Mother Eve held the steaming cup of Alru so her husband could drink. Enoch shook them off, grabbed the patriarch's hand, and squeezed it until his cloudy brown eyes fluttered open. Father Adam, what was the Ancient One like? Enoch asked, pointing above. What did you see when you first opened your eyes? Adam seemed to get a second wind. His eyes brightened. Let him pass. Mother Eve waved the youth forward, smiling. Call for the sevenths. The silver-haired elder ushered Enoch to a stool by Father Adam and pulled the curtains back, directing the seventh sons from all tribes to seats nearest the patriarch. The craggy man pushed his son in the spot right next to Enoch. Enoch winked at Tubal-Cain. The boy grinned and winked back, eager to hear the tale. Father Adam seemed tired, but Enoch was excited. Were you afraid? What color was his eyes? Does he really look like us? Be slow to speak and swift to hear, son, Adam laughed. He was glorious. Adam began from his first memory of the light calling his name and the tenor of the voice. He described the sound of the ancient's steps, the movement of his splendid robe, the joys of the garden, his mate's first appearing. Father Adam talked on and on, his voice gently slowing, softly slurring, eyes closing, loved ones surrounding until the room was full, and finally Mother Eve's tears falling. Did he die? The curly girl asked. Not yet. Mother Eve dabbed her eyes and wrapped more covers over him. He is resting. We shall see what the new sun brings. Mother Eve bent down and hugged Enoch. That was a beautiful thing you did. Brave, too. She removed a gold-braided band still clenched in Adam's hand. This was made from the skins given to us by the ancient himself. Adam was planning to give it to a seventh today. But what of the other seventh sons? The craggy man protested. He hasn't talked to them all. This one be favored, the great mother said, draping it around Enoch's neck. Take it. She was already moving on, giving the elders orders. Make haste. Give the sickly ones a sip of brew until it runs out. Suddenly, Enoch was surrounded by tribesmen, slapping him on the back, congratulating him. Well done. You Jared's boy, right? Fool, the craggy man barked, slapping Tubal-Cain as hard as he could. Why couldn't you do something like that? He ripped the boy's banner off his chest, threw it to the ground, and stomped on it. Some seventh son you are. The young one's eyes filled with tears. A red welt appeared on his chubby cheek. The man's wives argued with the craggy man, pulling him to the side. Naima hid behind Tubal-Cain. Enoch felt his own cheeks burn as he picked up the torn banner and gave it to the young scout. Sorry. Tubal-Cain shrugged and turned away. The silver-haired elder moved as if he would confront the craggy man, but stopped when he was called to the entrance. A tracker has been spotted near the outskirts. Enoch overheard an elder whisper. The curly girl looked as if she might throw a dagger at the craggy man. Instead, she threw up a signal. Follow me. Why? Enoch motioned. She rolled her eyes and used her hands. To see some real Neshpanel. Him too? Enoch asked, pointing at Tubal-Cain. Not if he's afraid of the woods. I'm no coward. Tubal-Cain was huffy as he stepped timidly out of his father's view. The craggy man was now scolding twin boys, who cried in the folds of their mother's skirts. We shall see. The curly girl swiped Tubal-Cain's crimson banner and smirked as she stuffed it into her pocket. And you might be wanting this back. Enoch grinned at her sauce. The curly girl was already heading toward the back. What's your name? Enoch asked. Tafara, daughter of Seth, she said, pointing at the silver-haired elder. Can I come too? Naima whispered, catching up. You hate the woods, her brother protested. No, I don't. Stay with Mother. Please, Naima panicked. Don't leave me with... Fine, Tubal-Cain said, but you better keep up. I'll help you, Naima, Enoch said. The four younglings snuck away from the craggy man, out the back, and into the sloping hills of Adama. Icy eyes, wide with shock, pale and blubbering, the Alpha trackers dragged the men on planks toward the city with heads held low, chanting. The 4 younglings hung from a father tree, watching the procession. What happened to him? Enoch yanked Nama's long pigtail just as the last scout passed. Hush! She squealed and slapped his hand. How should I know? Got too close, probably. Tubal-Cain somersaulted from a high branch and landed beside him. I bet I could find the Aru and bring it back. Enoch did 2 somersaults and swung to the ground using a vine. Not if I get it first. Tafara cartwheeled from the tree and landed on her feet. Sorry, no girls allowed in the Nesh Panel, Tubal-Cain said, imitating her move. Wolves would tear you to bits before you cleared Avonland Forest, Enoch said. Looking for this? Tafara swiped Enoch's blade and held it in the sun. I can track better than both of you. Help! Nama called from the treetop. I told you not to climb, Tubal-Cain shouted at his sister. You know you're afraid of heights. Tafara giggled. I'll get her, Enoch said, scaling back up the trunk. Nama waited with arms folded, lips pouting. See, Enoch. She dangled the tattered ribbon in the breeze. You broke it. Sorry. Enoch looked down. Tubal-Cain and Tafara were too busy arguing to notice him. Here, use this instead. He pulled the braided band from his neck, tore a piece off, and tied it around her hair. The gold leather strip gleamed against her ebony plait. The gold band is just for 7ths, she flushed. I couldn't. If I break something, I fix it. Please, take it. Enoch wiped his sweaty palm and held out his hand. Friends forever? She ignored his hand and kissed his cheek. Friends forever. Nama climbed onto his back. Enoch, hurry up! Tafara yelled from below. They're coming! Nama jumped from the lowest branch into her brother's arms. We'll split here, Enoch said. We don't want the fathers to catch us. Chapter 2. Enoch. The year Adam died, 930 BC. Enoch crouched beneath the father tree, praying for cover, resisting the urge to wipe sweat from his brow. A twig snapped. The creature's behind me. The shuffling darted 3 paces to his right, then again to his left. No, in front. Maybe I miscalculated. Instead of 1, 4 beasts are tracking me. Tubal-Cain. Enoch scowled. My cousin has played me low. Why did I trust him? Enoch slumped. Splitting up to search for Alra was just a guise. Now my tribe will pay for my foolishness. Enoch surveyed his options before risking a move. The power of the light was setting fast, and with it the last of his strength. Sweat and tears blurred his vision, but Enoch dared not blink. I will deal with Tubal-Cain later. Something with a higher intelligence than he had anticipated was tracking him. Not 4 beasts, but 1, with the ability to travel fast. Enoch slid closer to the pungent evergreen, hoping its scent would mask his own. A gust whistled through the upper branches. The blast of air swooshed again. Glory to the light, he exhaled. The creature was gone. Enoch enjoyed that breeze until it reminded him of something familiar. Breathing. Something very large was in the wood above. Sheer desperation forced him to act. Maybe this wasn't one of Tubal-Cain's trained beasts. Maybe it was. Enoch remembered the elder's warning. And if you see a cherub, waste no time. Run. Just then he saw it, or rather he heard it. Swoosh. The fading light bent under the movement. A glimpse of strange flesh raced by, deep green, then tawny brown like the tree. Swish! The soft red clay vibrated under his calloused feet. It vanished, but the vibrations continued. It was running. No one had seen a cherub in 7 ages. Father Adam's tale of his last experience was enough to strike terror in the heart of the fiercest tracker. Why was it running? It could have easily killed him. Enoch inched forward. Tracks. You might be camouflaged, but you do have feet. Enoch followed the oversized imprints. His desire for the rare plant needed to stave off the sickness outweighed his fear. The cherub hadn't killed him when it had the chance. Surely that was a sign of the Ancient One's favor. Enoch ran light as a deer, deeper into the forest, slicing through flowering vines as he forged a plan. I'll follow the trail to the edge of the forbidden garden, gather the Auru, and head back before sunsleep. Else, I'll return at sun's birth when the protection of the One Mind is strongest. A fragrant mist shrouded Enoch from the waist down. He ducked and ran low, refreshed by the spray, searching the forest floor for Auru. It'll be by water, the elders said. Soon the scent filled the air. The river's deliberate rhythm flowed nearby, and the creature's tracks too. A long-winged dactyl soaring high dove through the branches and vanished in the treetops. No doubt positioned to hunt when darkness rose. I won't fill his belly. Enoch gripped his blade. If he won't reason, he dies. Enoch commanded most animals while light filled the heavens. True, the more rebellious ones, like TWO-ENOCH's wolves, were resistant even at sun's peak. The elder's words rang in his ears. Authority fades and wicked reigns in the black of night. The softening sky warned him the protection of the Ancient One would set soon. Only skill would save him then. Thank the light. Enoch clutched a fat vine to regain his balance, scattering loose soil from the crevice below. Thick foliage hid the last massive print and the sudden drop into rain. 4 great waters met in wild abandon at the bottom of the chasm. He gazed across the canyon. This must be it. Enoch whispered the old childling rhyme. If by the gulf for rivers roam, never enter Adam's home. A sharper inspection of the lush cliff on the other side rewarded his daring. Auru, tons of it decorated the precipice. It would be plenty, enough to sustain the sons of Adam and keep the sickness at bay for at least 7, maybe 8 more generations. This would buy them precious time needed for this seed to fulfill the prophecy. I must reach it before nightfall. TWO-ENOCH's familiar tracks were nowhere to be found, nor did the valley or rock face reveal his presence. Perhaps I bested my clever cousin this time. Enoch tied his pack around his waist, threw a lifeline across the canyon, and spanned the gulf with ease. Landing just 2 paces from the Auru clusters, he edged toward them, using his carver to dig into the rock-strewn earth. In a matter of moments, he was there. Praise the light! Enoch swiftly uprooted the leafy vines and stuffed them into his sack, humming as its stinging aroma cleared his nostrils. Good, it's not diminished. His limbs, used to hard labor, blistered under the strain. He ignored the pain and hummed louder, knowing he was close to success. Enoch's tune was so merry he didn't notice the buzz of wingspan until something zoomed past his head and sliced his back. Enoch stumbled, almost dropping his sack to dodge the dactyl. The hungry bird of prey, easily 15 spans wide, cocked its head and snapped its sharp beak. Enoch noticed his blood-stained hands and knees for the first time. He whistled to soothe its rebellion. Easy now, he cooed. All living creatures knew life was in the blood, and now as the sun stretched into slumber, the beast craved the crimson fluid as much as flesh itself. The dactyl circled and dove toward Enoch's head, over and over. His carver connected with the beast, wounding it, but his strength waned with the light. The bird was persistent. With blood dripping from its injured wing, it charged again, this time with sharp fangs and claws revealed. A bit of Auru might give me power to slay it. His stash was within reach, but how much? Too much might. Enoch ducked as the bird whizzed by his shoulder. No time. Enoch lunged. His carver sank deep into the bird. He yanked it from the squawking animal, preparing to strike again, but his carver, slick with blood, slipped from his hand and plunged into the great waters below. Enoch stared in defiance at the bird's final approach. Suddenly, the dactyl changed direction like a startled squirrel and flew across the divide into the forest. A familiar vibration shook the cliff. Hot breath blew over his body like wind. Some strange fascination made him look up. Human-like feet hovered above the turf only 4 paces above. A lion-like tail snapped to and fro, while its wings, feathered in downy magnificence, waved back and forth. It moved with unhurried grace. Committed to his fate, Enoch arched back to see the horrible face, but all he saw was light, brilliant like the dawn, and a sword sharp enough to slice a sequoia. Great arms raised its silvery point high. The sword flashed to and fro in one silent motion. I was wrong about the favor of the Ancient One. I am not the bearer. Enoch, dazed by the radiance of the hidden face, prepared to receive judgment. Enoch! Did someone call me? Enoch! There it was again, barely a whisper. Come. Enoch ignored it. Not only am I going to die, I'm losing my mind. Come now, the voice whispered once more. A callous hand jerked his hand away from its hold on the crevice. This was not his imagination. Enoch swung around with eyes narrowed. A man was clinging to the rock face. I know a way out, the stranger said, pulling him sideways. Don't look at the cherub. Back off slowly. Enoch tried to follow the stranger's lead without wincing. His hands were raw from gripping rocks. Alru leaves floated away like feathers from the bottom of his ripped pack. Enoch grimaced, gnawing his lip, hating his tears. He strained to see the man better as he moved further from the glorious cherub. Shoulders tanned by days in the light, bulged with brute strength as the stranger glided across the rocky surface. His dark hair was restrained at the nape with twine and bone. Pelts covered his loins, knees, and wrists like the tribe of Cain. Finally, they reached a narrow opening, hidden by the mossy vines. Enoch increased his pace to catch the stranger. The man had probably seen the whole thing. Maybe the favor of the Ancient One is upon me after all. Enoch wanted to ask his name and thank him, but the stranger sped through the cave's winding paths so fast, talking was impossible. Only a wooden stake the stranger lit with heaven's fire provided shelter against the pitch-black maze. Enoch struggled to keep up, scraping his badly damaged knees with each misstep. The cave seemed to be swirling and shifting as he trudged through it. I must be delirious. Enoch stumbled. If we don't stop soon, I'll collapse in this gloom and never find my way out. Oddly, the darkness began to lift. Dim golden light seeped from the walls, illuminating the way to a sun-drenched opening. The stranger paused briefly. Wait! Enoch panted, trying to catch up. Just as he did, the man disappeared. Bright light cloaked him. Enoch stepped through the entrance. Shards of light, logic, and pain sliced through him, examining him, separating him until he was no more. Then after time had its way, it released him. Enoch touched his face, not sure it was still there, and tumbled into a clearing. Soft grass, luxuriant and green, embraced his aching feet. The sound of racing water drew his attention onward. An expansive river surged up a mountain range as firm as the ground beneath his feet, but transparent. If his sight were better, he was sure he could navigate the terrain on the other side. The Alru he had risked his life to gather grew in joyful abundance along the river's bank. The stranger was nowhere to be found. Chapter 3. TWO-ENOCH. TWO-ENOCH adjusted his pack, bulging with tools, for the 10th time. The simple task reassured him. You won't catch me off guard, cousin, he muttered as he hacked through rods of sweet branch canes. TWO-ENOCH's thoughts circled like the sing-sing birds soaring overhead. Get rid of Enoch, find the Alru, return before sunsleep. Get rid of... He'd accomplished the first task easy enough. He and Enoch reached the tall father trees leading to Ovenland Forest, just 3 shades past sun's birth. The Dicieletos, he told Enoch, using Father Adam's tongue to endear himself to his cousin. If he'd simply said, Enoch, let's separate after they'd agreed to search together, Enoch might have become suspicious. He remembered with satisfaction how easily he'd handled his cousin's questions, how easily he'd convinced Enoch to travel with him in the first place. Enoch, honored one dedicated to the ancient, why should we carry the arguments of our fathers when our load is heavy enough? Forget the test. We should find the Alru together and share Adam's rule. Praise the light. That's what I was thinking. We both probably carry the seed. There's no reason for us to be enemies. The elders will listen when they see we obtain the Alru as brothers. Tubal-Cain was no fool. The elders might be confused, but he was not. He'd sensed the strength of the one mind resting on Enoch before during the hunt at the last New Sun celebration. The one mind increased their stamina for many spaces because of Enoch. They'd hunted all day and even through the night until they'd captured enough beasts to sustain the tribes. He knew staying close to Enoch was the only way he could run the 300 lengths from camp to Avenline and still be sure his little cousin wouldn't beat him to the forest. Child, you might best me in the plains, but here we're even. Tubal-Cain chuckled, remembering how he covered his tracks as soon as they separated. Didisi, you go to the left and I will go right. We'll circle back and meet. True, Enoch agreed. We can cover more ground that way. I'll find you at the end of each space. Instead, Tubal-Cain poured wolf urine along the trail. The foul odor masked everything. Not even Enoch could trace his scent now. Then again, I can't track him either. Tubal-Cain snapped a bulky rod in half with his bare hands. No mind, I don't need him. He adjusted his pack and continued foraging through the brush, muttering under his breath, "Find the Alru, return before sunsleep, find the—" Tremble. Adama's blood. Tubal-Cain halted, rubbing his sweaty palms against his legs. Listen, listen, listen. You must listen to overcome. He drilled Father Lamech's advice until he was as still as a lion. Even the creeping things stopped chirping. Tremble. Purple petals fell from the father trees. He was far from their beckoning cover. One false move and he formed a plan. I'll kill it. Adama's blood. He tightened his grip on his axe. I don't have shades to waste on a kill. I must find the Alru. Tubal-Cain gripped his rope. I can use the beast to cover more ground. He crouched and waited. Listen, fool. His father's familiar rebuke echoed in his mind. The melody of the sing-song birds broke his concentration and the smell of something else. Dew. Great quantities of it. I must be close. Alru grows near rushing waters. Tubal-Cain waited. The beast moved on. He sighed. No ride today. Tubal-Cain surveyed the forest again, noticing the downward slope. He inhaled great gulps of earth's breath, locating the source. It was coming from Sun's home on his right. Tubal ran toward it and into the forest of towering father trees. Tubal-Cain cocked his head to the side. The smell of dew was much stronger here. He ran like a bear through the woods, using his 8-foot frame to pummel through the low branches. A small hopper scurried out of his way, as did all the living creatures in the wood. Tubal-Cain still exuded Father Adam's dominant force. When he appeared, animals ran. The downward slant increased his momentum. The hour was probably at the bottom near the great waters. Tubal-Cain skipped over the rods and roots in the craggy hill, running as fast as he could. Thump, thump, thump. The rhythm of his feet echoed his thoughts. Get rid of Enoch, find the arrow, return before sunsleep. The sound of rushing waters spurred him forward. By Adama's blood, I will win, he swore. Tubal-Cain threw his arms up in victory, anxious to claim the Alru. Bam! Pain ripped through his head like sharp needles. Speckled lights flashed. Tubal-Cain lay flat on his back, dazed, ground swing. He tried to force the earth still, grasping at loose rocks. It didn't stop swerving, but steadied him long enough to see his leg tangled in a protruding vine. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Tubal-Cain flopped back. New waves of nausea and more colored lights greeted him as he looked to the sky for help. The dimming blue was unconcerned and on schedule. By Adama's blood, Tubal-Cain swore, darkness will rise in 2 spaces. Must get up. Must find water. Must make shelter. Forget the Alru till new light comes. Ignoring his throbbing head, Tubal-Cain pushed with all his might to lift his torso and examine his injuries. His right ankle was bruised and swollen, but his leg seemed to be okay. His knee, on the other hand, hid behind his leg. Tubal-Cain tried massaging it into place. He grunted and collapsed again, clasping his head with both hands. He drew them to his face, Blood, warm handfuls of it, filled his fists as he opened and closed them in disbelief. Must find water, must find Alru, must make shelter. He would need the Alru now to survive. TWO-ENOCH groaned as he rolled his weight onto his side. Long twisted locks of hair matted with blood fell in his face. Dizziness returned with pounding pain. He grasped the base of a young fir and hoisted himself onto his good leg. He tried to adjust his pack in vain, gasping for breath. He forsook the habit, realizing he would need all his strength to reach the river. TWO-ENOCH propped himself against the tree, snapped off 2 low branches for support, and began his trek again, hobbling down the hill one agonizing step at a time. TWO-ENOCH stopped to check his head again. It oozed. He'd been wounded before, of course. Once a rebellious mammoth lion clawed his entire right side, but this superficial wound healed in a few shades, leaving no trace of the attack. This must be a piercing wound, the kind I usually give. TWO-ENOCH berated himself. Father Lamech would kill me himself if he could see me now. The bloody flow streaming down his face drove him to the river. If Alru grew there, its power might conquer even a piercing wound. He'd seen Alru bring a wounded man back from the edge of darkness. Must find water, must find Alru, must make shelter. TWO-ENOCH repeated, forcing himself to move. He was cold. The sun descended through towering trees. Creeping things screeched. Squeaky, squeaky. Their cadence introduced the night. Living things which normally fled from his presence watched his downhill trek with no sympathy. Golden pairs of eyes stared through deepening shadows. A howl no more than a space away reverberated through the woods. He shivered. Wolves. TWO-ENOCH rushed downward on the makeshift crutches. Step, thump, step, thump, step, thump. Each motion destroyed cartilage and released more blood. Must make it to the river, must make it to the river, must make it to the river. If he did, Alru or not, he could at least cover his sin and escape a ravenous attack. A dactyl dove through the branches and landed high in the treetops, waiting. Let him dine on the wolves. Triumph was just ahead. Tumbling rapids sparkled in the moonlight, inviting him to plunge in. I can float downstream, make camp, and find Alru at sun's birth. Wolves never enter the great waters, not even to satisfy their craving for blood. Almost there, almost there, almost there, he whispered. A mangy gray and black, 4-legged creature appeared, silent as a specter. TWO-ENOCH stopped his rhythmic hobble. The wolf rose on its hind legs, blocking his path to the river. TWO-ENOCH clenched the rods in his aching hands as if his grip alone could subdue the wolf. It glared at TWO-ENOCH through cold yellow eyes. Saliva dripped from its outstretched tongue. Its coarse panting taunted him. By Adama's blood, I will kill this insolent beast. TWO-ENOCH swore, poising himself to strike the creature with his rods. He shifted all his weight to his good leg and swung. Whack! The wolf barked and rolled onto its back as the thick branch struck him. TWO-ENOCH lifted his rod to finish the job, striking the wounded wolf again and again until it lay motionless before him. His heart pounded. He was winded. Fresh blood gushed from the wound in his head, and then he saw them. Three pairs of golden eyes materialized from the shadows. TWO-ENOCH's spine was on fire. Sensation and experience told him there were at least 2 more wolves behind him. Now that he wasn't distracted, he could see their defiant approach. How dare these wolves hunt him, a son of Adam, as if he were another dumb beast. TWO-ENOCH swept both rods in broad circles as he balanced on his good leg. The wolves circled as well, snarling and dashing, looking for an opportunity to strike. TWO-ENOCH stumbled. They're trying to tire me out. TWO-ENOCH swung wildly now, hobbling and hitting as many beasts as he could. Injured wolves yelped and thudded to the ground. Is that all? He kept spinning, swinging the rods round and round until a maimed wolf leaped through the onslaught and bit his good leg. Fresh pain forced him down. The remaining wolves charged instantly, biting him repeatedly. TWO-ENOCH tried to beat them back with his bare arms while he covered his face, but he was no match for the razor-sharp fangs ripping his flesh. Sp, sp. The beast at his face fell backwards. Sp, sp. Another wolf dropped, his mouth still open in frozen attack. Sp, sp. The last beast collapsed. Speckled lights danced before his eyes. The earth was moving again. TWO-ENOCH clutched the dust. Can't stop, can't stop, can't stop. Must find Alru, must find Alru, he gasped, talking to the swirling lights. Then darkness lifted him with strong hands and carried him through the woods. Enoch inhaled crisp air. Could this be? No, impossible. But those mountains and that scent! Enoch racked his brain. Even with his significant knowledge of vegetation in Adam's realm, he could not place the aroma. It was sweet like the jasmine hanging along the edge of Avonland Forest. But it's not jasmine, he mumbled, searching for the source. It's more delicate. He limped to the crystal waters, drawn by an overwhelming desire to touch the jubilant rapids crashing against the bank. He peered through its depths. It went on forever, reflecting his marred appearance and the beauty around him. He cupped handfuls of cool water and splashed it over his blood-stained face and limbs. It's the water! The strange, sweet aroma was coming from the river. Enoch smacked the water, laughing like a childling as the spray splattered his face. Enoch tossed more and more of the refreshing liquid over his body, only stopping long enough to quench his thirst. He drank deep gulps, sputtered, and drank even more. He fell back, giggling at his urgency. Enoch, you fool, he scolded himself. There's plenty, no need to. Smooth, tan skin and a set of bright black eyes stared back at him. He touched his face. No scars. No marks. Not even familiar blemishes from a wound spoiled his features. He studied the river again, remembering the elder women speak of it at night, reciting tales to soothe children too sick to sleep. The river of life? Enoch's voice was barely audible. Is this the Garden of Eden? He jumped to his feet, surveying the landscape. The unusually large, fragrant trees lining the riverbank, the strange, humongous fruit, his miraculous healing. Praise the light! Enoch leaped with joy along the cultivated paths. Father Adam and Mother Eve said it was beautiful, but I did not imagine how much. Then he saw it. One tree dominated the others. The giant among giants grew somehow on both sides of the river. As he approached the shade of its branches, its heady fragrance permeated the area. It was pleasant and delicate. It reminded him of something. The water. The essence of the tree has saturated the river. I drank it and it restored me instantly. This must be the tree of life. Is the curse over? The Ancient One has shown me favor for truth, but this? He reasoned out loud, looking again at the Alru flourishing by the riverside. This is more than I expected. If I bring back the fruit from the tree of life, we will not die. Ever. Enoch walked cautiously toward the tree and paused. I dare not take of the tree without permission. He knelt by the trunk. Hidden Father, if it is your will, give me of the tree so I and my people might live. Enoch waited. Only the sounds of a gentle breeze blowing through the leaves broke the silence. He rested against the trunk of the tree, listening intently, watching, hoping an answer would come. Enoch rose with a heavy sigh and headed toward the Alru growing along the banks, knowing that no answer was his answer. Father Adam had taught him that. He knew the stories. How many times had the first father prayed and begged that the curse might be removed, that they might be allowed to enter the garden again, only to hear nothing. I could take the fruit, but if too much Alru was enough to kill a man, then what of this tree's essence? If I take the fruit and die, no one will know what happened to me, and the suffering ones waiting for the Alru will surely die. No, I will not put their lives in more danger. The Ancient One guided me to the Auru, and that is enough." He thought again of the stranger who had led him to the garden. Where was he? Who was he? How did he discover the hidden passage to the garden when none of the elders knew of it? After I gather the Auru, I'll find him and thank him. Enoch walked along the clusters by the riverbed, searching for the cave entrance. Not only was there no cave entrance, there were no caves in sight. I must have traveled further than I thought. A gentle wind blew across the waters and ruffled his hair. "The favor of the Ancient One is upon me," Enoch smiled. "Might as well get what I came for." Enoch plucked Auru by the stalks, careful not to damage the root system, and stacked it in neat piles. "'Tis a shame," Enoch berated himself. "What would Jarrett say? The best tracker of the tribe of Seth lost." In his excitement, well, no one could fault him for that. He forgot the first rule of the Alpha trackers. Always mark your path. Now he must find the stranger to get home. This concludes Chapter 3 of Taken, a metaphysical fantasy novel. If you enjoyed this excerpt and just can't wait for the next chapter, I have good news. The Taken ebook is available absolutely free for a limited time through Amazon Kindle. Please check the description box for details and stay tuned for upcoming chapters of Taken on this YouTube channel. Remember, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love him. Please share this uplifting read with your friends and get ready to soar. Thank you again for listening, and may the favor of the Ancient One be on you.